With the threat of cyber attacks higher than ever, visibility into the organization's security posture is critical. Why? Because there's one imperative if an attack succeeds: being able to recognize what's affected and recover information to a known point in a timely manner. For data that's been stolen, exfiltrated, identifying what that is critical to making better business decisions about next actions. I'm Tom Shields. This is the Intelligence Report. Here with me today are Gagan Gulati from NetApp and Randy Kerns from Futurum. Let's talk about what's needed to discover and prioritize data for better risk management. Gagan, maybe you could kick it off. Let's discuss this. Is all data equal or not?
Hey, thanks, Tom, for having me here. First, it's all about liability and risk management. And second, not all data is born equal. You can look at it as logs from an automated system versus company confidential data. They're very different and they have to be classified differently. So that's how it all starts. And as a company which is producing petabytes of data a day, you must be able to discover and then able to classify your confidential data. Only when you can discover and classify your confidential data in an automated way would you be able to quickly understand the liability of the attack. How much data and what kind of data was attacked, and is it even worth going after and then recovering that data for the organization, and the criticality of that recovery and response operation that you want to put in place.
Mm-hmm. So you got to know what you have and what's the most important stuff. Does this ring true for you, Randy? I know you've been a CIO and you've been in these situations.
Well, you've got to look at it from the standpoint that there's an economics play in here, in that what you end up trying to do is to protect all your information to the highest level possible, and you make investments in your infrastructure for protecting data, et cetera. In reality, data has different value when you understand what it is. That's where you understand the difference between what information is versus just data of ones and zeros. Absolutely, you want to know that in making a judgment for recovery and risk management and actions to take. But in the protecting and how you put the security around it, typically you don't do that. And the reason you don't is primarily investments. They want to minimize the amount you pay in IT ops for the staff and the infrastructure that you have, and really the time spent. So a lot of times you're protecting all the information somewhat as an amorphous blob of data. And that's obviously not the right thing to do, but it's the economical thing to do, and that's the way things have evolved. So if you think about it, then understanding what's important is an after the fact element right now. Then that's not the best way to do things, but we aren't at a point where we're starting over. We're not at a point where it's a greenfield and it's the first time you're doing this. We're in an environment where this is the way we've done it. So right now, let's figure out what we do as after there's been an attack. That's its current state.
So what's your perspective on visibility and classification and kind of changing the way it's been done?
Absolutely. If you look at the general NIST framework, it all starts with governing your data, detecting, and then protecting. And how would you know, to Randy's point, protect your data ideally if you don't understand what your data is? So in some sense, data classification and automated data classification and discovery helps you prioritize where and how you protect your data. That's number one. So you can then take the appropriate action in terms of what you want to back up first. How critical would these backups be? How quickly you want this data to be backed up? And then, of course, if an attack happens, how quickly would you want to respond? How well you want to recover? And then whether you want to pay a ransom on the data or not. So in the sense, data classification and better discovery of the data helps you with literally all the various pillars of the NIST framework and help you build better ransomware defense and better defense against cyber attacks by helping you prioritize almost everything that you do. If you have a top workload, you need to know this is my top workload. If you have confidential data, you need to know this is my confidential data and I must protect it well. And therefore, I must recover my confidential data and my top workload when things go wrong. So it all starts with data classification. It all starts with prioritization of the various information assets you have in your company. We'll all go as far as to say, you need to, as a company, understand where is your actual gold, right?
Yes.
And you want to make sure that you protect your gold with the best of your ability.
Right. And so there's automated capabilities that you can do with identification and classification. Randy, is there other things that we can do here? I mean, in terms of bringing in business owners and
Yeah, let's take it to a practical element here. So how do I affect change? And am I going to say, okay, guys, we need to start doing this inside IT? That's not going to happen. There's no money for that. They don't have the people for that. So IT is going to continue to operate like they are, and they'll do the best they can. The way to affect change here is to, what you guys are saying is go to those business owners and say, let's figure out if this critical information that you have in your key business application is protected to meet regulatory compliance requirements, to meet your criticality of your information requirements, et cetera. A lot of people inside IT call this an audit, but basically to go in and classify that particular data, to figure out what it is, then determine the whole process of how it's protected, where it's protected. That will also tell them a lot about how they're going to recover. And remember, we started talking about defense in depth previously, and this will tell them how deep that information goes for the recovery. And so that type of audit then, from the really initiated by the business owner as the value of the business to that organization, then can say, this has to change because we're not meeting these regulatory requirements, we're not meeting our business governance requirements, et cetera. And then that'll create the impetus for the IT organization to go make a change around that information. It may bring along the funding to do that as well, but the impetus has to come externally here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So technology can take it so far, but you need the validation from the business owners. This is the gold.
Correct.
And the buy-in there that'll drive the change back into IT.
It's
the process.
It's in their interest, and you could also say they're not doing their responsibilities to the organizations to assure their business data has the integrity and protection required.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You agree with that?
Absolutely. This is the core part, right? You want to make the right business decisions at all times, whether it's at the time of protection of data or your workloads, or it's happening at the time of recovery of that data or your workloads. And it's all about prioritization, end of the day. And that prioritization gets determined by what the business units, the business owners are coming and telling you about the data, whether it's more manually or whether it's through automated systems that are being used that help you determine the importance of the data and the workloads you're dealing with. I mean, there are cases where you'll find that a company decides not to pay ransomware money, just because they had these classification systems which come and tell them, this data that the exfiltrators took is not worth it. Don't worry about paying. Right. So these are all examples of good classification system in place involving the right business units, business owners to help determine, what actions do you want to take in your entire cybersecurity defense mechanism and your ransomware defense.
So when it comes time for making decisions during the recovery phase, you've got a lot more intel to take the stress out of it, to the extent you can take stress out of that kind of situation. But it sounds like a very useful collaboration between the technology and the business owner is necessary to make this function.
I think this is where again, to Randy's point, this is where classifying the data early and doing it as a whole organization helps you maintain a better security posture, helps you maintain a better compliance posture, and then helps you with the entire defense against cyber attacks, against ransomware attacks, and ensuring that the company is always in good hands in terms of putting the right processes and the right tools in place.
Perfect.
There's one more factor here in that the regulations change, the compliance changes, requirements around information. So as they change, you need to go back and relook at these things. all that information, saying, are you doing it according to the new set of laws or requirements? So it's not a
It's a
one-time
constant
deal.
back and forth in terms of the business owners and what needs to be classified
Correct.
as top priority, and is the right data protection in place for those resources. Now that's amazing information. I want to thank both of you guys, Randy and Gagan. We've learned that visibility and classification are invaluable for risk management because they inform both protection, prioritization, and corrective actions during the recovery phase. And techniques like these can really promote sound business decisions, which is what you need in times of crisis. So please tune in to our intelligence reports, and we're going to be discussing more aspects of cybersecurity, and we'll see you next time.